Welcome back to the channel, everyone. It's Tyler James Milliken here with our series on the main points of the Bible as we attempt to unpack the main point of the book of Ruth. And by the end of today's episode, we're going to almost physically fight with Bart Ehrman and his lackeys over their summary of the book of Ruth. As we kick things off here in the book of Ruth, we're in the days of Judges, which means we're looking forward to the eventual installation of a king over Israel. And so we are looking ahead to the Davidic legacy. But before we get there, we have a touch of irony here, as there's a famine in the house of bread, Beit Lechem, and a certain man from the house of bread can't find any. He's got to go sojourn in the fields of Moab. And so off he goes, Elimelech and his wife Naomi. And the names of his two sons are Machlon and Chilion. About to get Chilion because these guys are cleared out very soon afterwards. Elimelech dies, Machlon dies, and Chilion, you know what happens. Suddenly, Ruth and her sister-in-law Orpah are left there with her mother-in-law, Naomi, who is an Israelite. And so this Israelite turns to these Moabite girls that had married Israelite boys and explains, it's really unlikely circumstances that they got married to Israelites in the first place under Old Covenant circumstances. And so she says, go back to your people, the house of your mother. You're not going to find any husbands with me, so why don't you head on back? And Orpah kisses her mother-in-law, but Ruth clung to her. Orpah's ready to leave. Ruth is ready to stay. So Naomi says, behold, your sister-in-law has gone back to her people and her gods. This is the crucial point. She's back to the Moabite gods. And so what is Ruth going to do? Is she going back to the Moabite gods or not? Well, don't urge me to leave, she says, or to turn back from following you. And then you get the famous statement of covenant loyalty from Ruth: for where you go, I will go. Where you lodge, I will lodge. Your people shall be my people, and your God shall be my God. And so she's pledging here faith in Yahweh, and she's slowly on the path to becoming or maintaining her status as an Israelite, as she has actually already been married to an Israelite husband. So where you die, I will die, she says. There I will be buried, and she swears this covenant oath. Thus may Yahweh, she's invoking the name of Israel's God for her covenant pledge. It's not wise to swear oaths under the new covenant, but nonetheless, this is what she does. May Yahweh do to me, and worse, if anything but death parts me and you. So she's determined, and Naomi says nothing more. Now, Naomi is in the throes of bitterness, however. She's lost her husband and their sons. So she says, don't call me Naomi, pleasantness, call me Mara, bitterness, because now she's in the bitterness of life. I went out full, but came back empty, she says. And this is the very real struggle of family circumstances, death, aging, struggles with making ends meet. And this is where we must strive to see the goodness of the Lord through the trials, through the difficulty, and the covenant loyalty that he's going to have, not taking us around the trials and tribulation, but through trials and tribulation. Blessed is the one who endures temptation or passes the test to endure through the trials. So she will eventually see God's covenant loyalty through this unlikely hero in the story as the outsider is brought in, and Ruth has a potential kinsman redeemer, a goel here. And this brings us to a great theme in the book, which is the right of redemption in Israel. You have a nearby family kinsman redeemer, and what they are able to do as they have the means, the finances, the security to secure inheritance from family members that are losing inheritance. This often involves land inheritance. But the more important thing here is it's the preservation of the chosen seed because of the seed promise in Genesis 3, the birth of children and the continuation of the Israelite legacy, even through unlikely heroes and unlikely people. Now she comes to the field of Boaz. Boaz shows famous covenant loyalty to her, allows her to glean from the field. She's got plenty of food available, has his workers protect her, and so on. And so Ruth asks the evident question, why have I found favor in your sight that you should take notice of me, since I am a foreigner? Why are you treating me better even than most Israelites would be treated when she is from the fields of Moab? Well, he had heard of the covenant faithfulness she had done, which shows us that it's not tied to whether you're an ethnic Israelite or not. We have foreshadowings of every nation, kindred, tribe, and tongue under the mercy and grace of God right here in this Old Testament book, in the book of Ruth. So he says, may Yahweh reward your work. And so just as she had said, your God will be my God, here it is. He's praying for the blessing of Yahweh upon her and her covenant reward. May your wages be full from Yahweh, the God of Israel, under whose wings you have come to seek refuge. A great picture here of finding rest, safety, shelter, and salvation in the God of Israel, under whose wings, under the shadow of the Almighty. But the wings here, the kanafav, the wings of Yahweh, are actually a crucial part of this imagery, because this is going to show up again in chapter 3. In chapter 3, what we have is the winnowing of the barley harvest, and what this would be like the fall festival or the spring festival. People would come together, have their big celebration. This is your outdoor festival party. And so Naomi hatches a plan. You know, the girls always come together. Oh, you know, he's going to be there. Get everything ready. Put on your best clothes. So she's got this plan, and she says, go over, find out where he's lying down to sleep for the night. And for our older listeners, there's definitely a bit of romantic tension here in this scene. Nothing of impropriety, but you can imagine as they're laying down, there's a pan up to the moonlight and the stars. The next morning, they're lying separately, but nonetheless, he looks after he's laying down, and behold, a woman was lying at his feet. It doesn't say, a Moabite girl. Full-grown woman is right there. Wow. And she answered, who are you? She answered, I'm Ruth, your maid. So spread your covering over your maid, for you are a close relative. The point here is a goel, a redeemer. He is the one who can redeem. So in the Old Testament, who is the great redeemer? It is Yahweh himself. But what we see is that Yahweh works through a representative redeemer. He works through a human ambassador as his redeemer, whose name is Boaz in the Old Testament, but a great foreshadowing of Jesus in the New Testament. So spread out your what? Kanafika, your wings. Just as Yahweh spreads out his wings, he works through a representative redeemer. And so she will find Yahweh's mercy and blessings under the wings, so to speak, of Boaz. So he says he can redeem, but there's a challenge here, because there's a nearer relative to their family who's the first kinsman redeemer with the right of redemption. So he's got to tangle with someone. There's going to be a challenge here before he can finally redeem. But he says he will do it if the Lord allows it. So lie down until morning. She does. They don't come together until chapter 4, but the romance is in the air. So Boaz in chapter 4 comes to the gate. And where would this be? The gate of the city. This is the city center where leaders, religious figures, those who practiced law or led the city would come together, sort of the town square. And he goes to approach this nearer relative who has the first opportunity to redeem all of Naomi's inheritance, including land and things of that nature. But what comes with this is the fate of Ruth. So what he says here is interesting. Turn aside, friend, and sit down here. Friend doesn't quite do it for this alternate option for Redeemer. A certain one, says the alternate text in NASB. That's not quite it. In the Hebrew text, it's almost a pun here, or just a bit of a code name, really. Poloni Almoni. As one preacher has said, Mr. Ping Pong, come and sit down. It's an obvious false name. It's like saying John Doe in modern parlance. His name has been erased. We don't know the actual name of this Poloni Almoni, which is really rendered a certain someone, right? We don't know who this is because he doesn't attach his name to the legacy that follows. Boaz is willing to show covenant loyalty, and his name is preserved, but Mr. Ping Pong is only going to be remembered as such. So why will he not redeem? Well, first off, he says, well, at the first opportunity, he says, yeah, I'd like to redeem it. But Boaz says, well, on the day that you're going to acquire the land, the field from the hand of Naomi, by the way, you're also going to get a Moabite wife, the widow of the deceased, in order to raise up name and legacy that will not be your own, but it will be reckoned as the name and legacy of the deceased to build up his covenant inheritance for future generations. All of a sudden, can't redeem it. Why? He's not worried about someone else's inheritance. He's worried about how this may jeopardize his own inheritance, as his legacy actually goes toward the name of the deceased, their future family, and so on. But more than that, there is the controversy of you're going to have, in the Old Testament, in their eyes, a Moabite wife. Now, under the New Covenant, we have the beauty that the door has been thrown wide open to every nation, kindred, tribe, and tongue, and we can be equally yoked in Christ spiritually. This is the way that it is designed, and that's what we have foreshadowed here in the book of Ruth. So when he refuses, Boaz takes over the right of redemption, calls all the elders and the people together, says they are witnesses. He has acquired not only the land, but now Ruth, the Moabitess, will be his wife, which means now she's going to be Ruth, the Israelitess. And that's how she will be remembered for generations and generations to come. Now, by the end of this, they are praying that she would be fruitful in her marriage. She finally finds rest in the house of a husband, and be fruitful like Rachel and Leah, who built the house of Israel. And then may your house be like the house of Perez, whom Tamar, another unlikely outsider, bore to Judah. And this is part of the Davidic legacy of the Judahite Messianic king. This is what we're tracking here through the end of the book. And so we start tracking names. This is why, for us as modern readers, we don't quite know what to do with the genealogies all too often. But in the ancient world, they would have been fascinated by these genealogies because they're tracking the names in the countdown to the Messiah. The promise from the beginning was that the seed of the woman would come, the ultimate redeemer and representative of Yahweh, to crush the head of the serpent. There would be this legacy through all these genealogies that one day the Messiah would come. By the way, he would be from the tribe of Judah, just as we saw there, and he would be from the Davidic lineage. So we're counting down from Judah through Perez, and then we get to Boaz, Obed, Jesse, and David. And what we have here is that all these names are brought into the legacy of God and preserved, sort of a symbolic look here at the book of life of God's true people, while someone like Poloni Almoni, figuratively speaking, we may say, has his name blotted out and erased. He has no covenant loyalty, no name or part in this lineage. Well, let's see how Bart Ehrman and his lackeys handled this one in their summary of the book of Ruth. So coming down to Ruth here, what have we? And their summary write-up says, a touching narrative of loyalty and love. Ruth, a Moabite, remains devoted to her Israelite mother-in-law Naomi after tragedy strikes. This is kind of the Hollywood summary write-up here. Her eventual marriage to Boaz not only highlights the theme of redemption, but also positions her in the direct lineage of King David. Okay, it's a start. It's a start. But what has he left out here is that the purpose of tracking the legacy to David is to count down to the eventual Messiah, that is the Christos. So if we went to chapter 1, verse 1 of the New Testament, we see the point of tracking the Davidic legacy is to get to the lineage of Jesus, the Messiah, that is Christos, son of David, son of Abraham. What did they pray for Ruth? May she be like Rachel and Leah, who built the house of Israel. And so you have the lineage of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the 12 tribes. And this is the whole point, is we're tracking down through them to, oh, look, we have Judah and Perez, who were mentioned in the book of Ruth, specifically for this purpose, to track all the way down through Boaz, the father of Obed by Ruth, Obed, the father of Jesse, Jesse, the father of David, the king, so that we can get here to the Christ, the Davidic king and the ultimate kinsman redeemer who was to come. Curious how they left out this whole messianic, salvific part of the legacy here. You wonder how things like that happen. So to sum up, the main point of the book of Ruth, we could say, is that God provides a redeemer for his people. And with this, he's doing two things at once. He's bringing the outsider in and the insider out. What do we mean? The unlikely Israelitess, who was a Moabitess, is brought from the fields of Moab, and she says, no, your God will be my God. And the outsider is brought in, while a false redeemer, someone like Mr. Poloni Almoni, is finally cast out. So the gospel is indeed a two-edged sword. It is both binding and loosing at all times. So as we look at these themes of redemption and salvation, the high redeemer and the human representative redeemer in the book of Ruth, how would you articulate the main point of this book, or how does this help to polish up your understanding of the book of Ruth? Go ahead and post a comment for us down in the comments section below. Let us know what you think, and we'll see you next time for an upcoming episode in our study of the main points of all the Bible.